Insights channel, Steve here. I want to record about something very fascinating. There is a declassified document, probably from the CIA, from many years ago, and it states the following. Our solar system is changing rapidly and nobody is talking about it. And here are the details about our planets, how things are changing on them rapidly. It says in number 1, Pluto's atmosphere has recently collapsed. Now, of course, I need to get these things verified. Number 2, Neptune's storms have suddenly begun rotating backwards. Number 3, Uranus' polar regions have been visibly flaring. Number 4, Jupiter has recently experienced a 700-degree temperature impulse, originating from its northern pole, and its great red spot is fading. Number 5, Mars is suddenly displaying seismic activity. Our own polar regions have warmed drastically recently. The amount of volcanic activity we're seeing is an all-time high. 7, Venus planetary winds have increased their velocity by 33% in the last 20 years. Goes on from there. We've recently observed, of course this is a scientific report, one large-scale changes in the ice cover on Jupiter's moon Europa. Large-scale changes in the polar ice cap on Mars. 3, large-scale decrease in the atmosphere pressure on Venus. 4, mysterious brightening of the atmosphere of Saturn. 5, mysterious darkening of the atmosphere on Venus. 6, unusual changes in the temperature and pressure of the atmosphere of Neptune. 7, a brightening of the atmosphere of Jupiter. 8, mysterious dark spot near the south pole of Venus. And here on Earth, our own magnetosphere, or magnetosphere, is rapidly losing its strength as our magnetic poles continue to race away from their usual positions, wreaking havoc on animal migrations. See all the beached whales over the last couple of years, as well as spiking reports of unusual bird migrations. Things have gotten to the point where we are now updating our magnetic models yearly. Soon there will be zones of flux broken bad enough to cause real danger to flying due to constant magnetic reconnection. Our aurorae are reaching record levels of intensity, with aurorae colorations indicating very high energy intensities being observed. That's right, we're seeing the aurora borealis much more frequent in the UK and lower latitudes. The fundamental electromagnetic nature of this planet is changing rapidly. Electromagnetism is responsible for a variety of effects on living creatures, most especially cardiac and pulmonary health in humans. Volcanic activity on our planet is currently at a record, with more and more volcanoes showing concerning lift, erupting, showing increases in lava flow. Every single active volcano along the Pacific Rim is showing increased activity. Given only one of the two data points, it would be easy to discount the events as isolated and unrelated with no significance, but taken together, however, the total body of evidence becomes impossible to ignore. And once the presumption is made that this information is known by our leaders, it pretty much explains the motivations for their actions. Everything is changing, and nobody's telling you. In fact, they've built us a world where these questions are taboo, where every answer leads you away from the glaring obvious truth that we live on a planet subject to cyclical cataclysms. Those in power know that the next cataclysm is coming soon, and have been preparing for a long time. It's just that their plans don't include us. And this is taken from a declassified CIA document, The Adam and Eve Story, by Chan Thomas. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. And it says that this document reveals that the Earth undergoes cataclysmic events or pole shifts approximately every 6,500 years, leading to the destruction, mass extinctions and rebirth of civilization. I know that this same article also mentioned another important fact. It was talking about the decline in the thermocline or the Gulf Stream. In other words, there is a current of waters under the seas going all around the world, driven first by the warm waters, and it's driven from around about India, down past Africa, then up through the Atlantic over to the Gulf Stream area, and then it curves around back up to the North Pole, and then back down again. And it keeps circulating. But the point is that this circulation of these waters has caused it to be unusually mild in the Northern Hemisphere, especially like in places like the UK and Europe, or especially UK. But if that cycle of the Gulf Stream stops, the temperature is going to fall, and the climate is going to shift, and it's going to become more like an ice age, or like it was many thousands of years ago. So that's one of the things they're afraid of. They brought that out in the movie The Day After Tomorrow. What would happen if that massive flow of warm water in the oceans, in the Atlantic Ocean, stops? So that's one of the things they're afraid of. They're afraid it's going to be a big disaster, and everything's going to die off because of a collapsing world climate in every sense of the word. I find it very interesting, that they state here in this, obviously, a scientific document that around about every 6,000 years comes a major disaster. Everything dies, everything starts again. We've all heard that before. But it is interesting that around about, in reality, according to the Bible, around 4,500 years ago, there was a major disaster, a worldwide flood, which, by the way, was followed by an ice age. And I think it was caused by the massive amount of evaporation of water into space, caused the temperature to drop down in the northern, southern regions drastically, causing an ice age. Well, that was only 4,500 years ago. The last time there was a terrible worldwide disaster with a great flood, which of course God brought as a judgment on all the wicked in pre-flood times. I find this very interesting, the scientific article, because I've never heard about this before. Of course, I've all heard about global warming on the planet Earth, but I'd never heard there was trouble on the other planets, or things are changing, or things are not as they were. Everything's changing fast or coming backwards in some way. I do, however, find that very interesting, because when we know the Bible, and we know about the end time, when we know Matthew 24, we know the signs of the times, and we know there's going to be earthquakes, and the seas are going to roar, there's going to be all kind of physical disasters. Well, I was just thinking today, well, wait a minute, maybe what's happening on those planets and outer planets is just like an illustration, physical illustration of the chaos that's being created and being caused here down on the Earth. It's affecting the planets out there. What man's done and what he's decided to do over the last 4,500 years since the last major disaster, the Great Flood, maybe it's starting to affect the outer planets. I do find that odd that most of the planets have got something happening on them that didn't happen before. They're being affected by something. That is quite amazing. Also, I find it interesting that the science is interested in the polar caps the polar areas of different planets, because when you know how the planet is really built, when you know that this planet is actually hollow, when you know that at the poles there are no poles, there's just an entrance into the inner Earth, and it's the same on all the other planets too. When you know some facts like that, then this sort of information has a lot more merit to it. It becomes even more interesting. The only thing I can think that will cause some trouble for the other planets is somebody's interfering with things. Fortunately, nobody's saying that the planets are coming out of their orbits or going somewhere else, or something that could drastically affect the Earth. Well, yet. Of course, we have, when you know the book of Revelation, and you know Revelation 8 and 9, you hear about astral bodies or falling stars falling on the Earth and causing chaos. All you have to do is read Revelation 8 and 9 to see that. And I think it's bad enough during the Antichrist reign. Wait until the wrath of God comes, when instead of just a third destruction of things, a third destruction, you get 100% destruction in Revelation 16. So it wouldn't surprise me if the planets are starting to look a bit faulty or look like things are going wrong. I think it's all related to the Earth. I think God, He created the Earth in the centre of the universe, and then He had the planets revolving around us, along with the sun as well, and the moon, everything revolving around the Earth. And the Earth is supposed to be the centre of attention. But of course, if the Earth is demonically controlled by Satan, his demons, more and more so, how does it affect the other celestial bodies? How does it affect them? I've heard stories from those in the know that there used to be another planet. There used to be another planet between Mars and Saturn. And as you already know, those who are in the know, they already found great structures, not just on the dark side of the moon, but on Mars too, including sphinxes, massive sphinxes, bigger than the ones here, and massive pyramids. And you can see that somebody used to live there. That's Mars. Apparently Mars used to have its own atmosphere. And then apparently there used to be another planet between Mars and Saturn. Apparently that's where the fallen angels and their siblings used to hang out, and it got up to too much trouble, so apparently God allowed that planet to get destroyed, and that's why we've got the asteroid belt today. It's the remains of that planet that was destroyed between Mars and Jupiter. Of course, those things are difficult to prove, but it is interesting. There is scripture that talks about this planet Rahab between Mars and Saturn. So there's a lot of strange things that have happened in space. They're even mentioned in scripture. Because people ask sometimes, well, what happened to the fallen angels at the Great Flood? What happened when mankind got wiped out? The fallen angels are eternal beings, are spiritual beings, but they can be physical. Where did they go? If they're still trying to hide from God, where did they go at the time of the Great Flood? Well, I've heard different versions on that one. I've heard people say that they went to live among the stars. Some said some of the stars closest by. I don't know. I don't know about that, but it is an interesting question. They must have gone somewhere. And the question is, what are they going to do in now, the end time? What are they going to do? What the fallen angels going to do now? What's their next thing they're going to do? We know they've fritzed up the earth because they got a lot of their sons of the giants who became the disembodied spirits of the giants or the demons after the flood, according to the book of Genesis. They've messed up this planet, you bet they have, working behind the governments of man and the book of Revelation called the merchants. But what about the rest of them? What about those who started off all the trouble, the fallen angels? Where did they go at the time of the Great Flood? Some people said to Orion's belt, maybe. There's a lot of questions that need answering, a lot of interesting questions like that one. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting little talk here. about the scientists are finding that there are faults on most of the planets. Some things are going wrong, including at their poles and to the rotation. Nothing too serious yet concerning the Earth, but I suppose we do need to realize that in order to fulfill things that the Bible talks about, talks about very drastic things in Isaiah chapter 24, where it shows everybody being shaken around and the earth turning upside down and all kind of stuff like that. Read it, Isaiah 64. I'm sorry, Isaiah 24. But it's interesting, we read about things, what it's going to be like in the end times and during the time of tribulation, the Antichrist. But I'd never heard of before that the scientists have discovered there are problems on the other planets. There are things happening that never used to before. That's why I thought I'd just let you know today. Well, thanks for listening. A little bit of science there. I would encourage you to get my books on these topics of science, supernatural, paranormal, and the things that are hidden in my books Out the Bottomless Pit, books 1 and 2. You can find those on Amazon, or you can buy them directly from me. Yeah, if you want to get my books, I'm doing a special offer for Christmas. You buy 2, you get a 3rd book for free, and you can find the information about my 11 books on my new website, which is www.insightspublication.com. And if you want to write to me to order books, find about prices, you can. One of my emails is activatedscotland@gmail.com. So you can write to Steve concerning my 11 books at activatedscotland@gmail.com. Well, thanks for listening. Have a great day.